Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing good and enjoying your time. In today's session, we will see about the next phase of the requirement engineering process that is called as requirement classification. Okay. So in requirement classification, whatever requirement is being discovered in the first phase, that is requirement elicitation and analysis, in this phase you are going to sort the information, okay, and you are going to classify the information depending upon the different categories. So these are different kinds of information depending upon some categorization. Okay, so let us see one by one. So the first one that you can see is mutable requirements. Okay, so these are the requirements that keeps on changing. Okay, when the working of the organization sometimes change, or the requirements that change because of changes to the environment in which the organization is operating. It means the requirements may change sometime depending upon the operations of the organization. For example, let us consider a hospital. Okay, so in hospital, the bill of each patient may vary or it may be different depending upon what type of treatment the patient is going to take. So this type of requirements are called as mutable requirements. The requirements that may change depending upon the environment or circumstances. Okay, so while development you may also come across these type of requirements which are called as mutable requirements. Alright. Now the second type of requirement or the second type of classification may be emergent requirements. What do you mean by emergent? They may emerge anytime. So sometime you will take a set of information, a set of requirement in the requirement discovery phase, and the developer may start working on the development, and later the developer will come to know that there are certain requirements which are not at all observed or which are not at all collected. So he may understand that some information set is missing during the system development. So the design process may reveal. So it is said that at the time of designing you may come across these type of requirements. Okay. So emergent requirements are nothing but, in short, the requirements uh, where, okay, during the development also sometimes you may see that some requirements are missing or there is a need to add some more important requirements. So those type of requirements are emergent requirements. All right. So let us see third one. So it is consequential requirements. Okay. So what do you mean by consequential? See, it's given here. Requirements that result from the introduction of computer system. Okay. So along with the introduction, you will get these kind of information, introduction to the software or the system. Sometimes it may change the organization process and open up a new ways of working which generate new system requirements. So it means that at the time of collection of requirements, the customer is giving you some requirements, but depend upon the organizational needs, the system requirements may change. It means the development team has to decide how to take these requirements which are being given by the customer. So those type of requirements are called as consequential requirements. So the fourth category of requirement is compatibility requirement. Okay, so these are the requirements that depend on particular systems or business process within an organization. As these change, the compatibility requirements on the commission or delivery system may also have to change, that is evolve. Okay, so compatibility requirements means what? Sometimes the customer will tell you to develop a software in .NET, but now you can see that the trend is Python. So it is the choice which is being given to the developer to check out the compatibility. So sometimes the compatibility is very important. Okay, so depending upon the business requirements and technology, the compatibility may change. Okay, so these are the basic categories in which the collected information from requirement discovery phase will be classified. So in requirement classification, okay, and organization, what you are going to do, you are going to classify the information. So you will first collect all the information, and then depending on that information, whatever you have collected, okay, you are going to classify information amongst these four broad categories. Okay, so this is about requirement classification. Okay, so let us move towards the next phase. So what is the next phase, guys? So if you see this block diagram, which is in the requirement discovery, first is the in requirement engineering process, first is discovery of requirements, second is classification of requirements, and third is all about requirement validation. Okay, so let us see what is requirement validation. Okay, fine. See, so as you know that validation is a process to check, okay, whether the software is designed correctly and satisfy all the needs provided by the customer. So validation is a process to check whether the software is designed correctly, whether the software is verified correctly, and it will satisfy all the needs of the customers. Okay, so that process is called as requirement validation. So more precisely, it is concerned with demonstrating that the requirements define the system that the customer really wants. It means whatever software you are going to design, it should satisfy all the requirements that are being provided by the customer. Okay. Requirements error costs are high, so validation is very important. So in second point, you will see that why validation is needed. See, if you go through the software development lifecycle phase, you can see that testing is done at the end. Okay, when all the modules are ready, then only you can go for testing. So you cannot repeat this process again and again because we use some tools to do testing. So it is said that testing is a costly process. So if you develop a software correctly, the cost of testing may be reduced. Okay. Fixing a requirement error after delivery may cost up to 100 times the cost of fixing an implementation error. See, what it is said, requirement error and implementation error. What is requirement error? The error which is caused due to the less requirements or inadequate requirements or missing requirements. What is implementation error? The error which is caused during the execution of the code, that is called as an implementation error. So they say here that the cost of implementation error is very less compared to the requirement error. Why? Requirement is the first phase of your software development, and if you see that there is a problem in the first phase, then you need to repeat the entire process. Whereas you can manage with the code. You can just change the code and run the code. Hence, we can see that validation also plays very major role for requirements also. So whenever you want to finalize that requirements, what is needed, you also need to validate the requirements. Okay, whether the customer, whatever information he has given, and the system analyst, what information he has collected, you need to check whether both the information are correct or not. Okay, so that is about requirement validation, right? Now we are going to see how they are going to carry out this process to see whether the requirements are valid or invalid, right? So that process is called as requirement checking. In order to validate your requirements, okay, in order to validate your requirements, you have to check whether the requirements are correct or not. So depending on what factors you are going to check those requirements, see, these are the below factors depending on which you are going to check whether the requirements are correct or not. So let us see one by one what are those checks needed to perform to see whether the information or the requirements that are collected are valid or not. So depending on these following factors, they are going to do that. So first one is validity. See, the first factor is validity. Okay. So here checks whether the system provides the functions which best supports the customer needs. It means whatever system you are going to design, whether that system will provide all the functionality that is being needed to the customer. So validity means what? It is going to see whether whatever requirements you have collected, with that requirements can we write the code which will satisfy all the needs of customers. So second factor is called as consistency. Okay, yeah. So are there any requirement that conflicts? So consistency means what? The requirements should not be amalgamated, or they should not be repeated, they should not be duplicated. Each requirement must be unique. Okay, see, requirements should be precise, requirements should be framed in such a way that it satisfies the real world problem. Okay, so there should not be repeated requirements, or there should not arise any conflict between the requirement, right? So third check that you perform is completeness. Okay, yeah. So you see that you had written everything in the question paper and you forgot to write the numbers of your answers. So is it a complete paper? No, it is not complete, right? So completeness is nothing but what? Following one order during the collection of requirement also, and providing a complete touch to the set of requirements from beginning to the end. Okay, which will include everything that is needed for the software development for that specific customer. All right. Okay, so next is realism. What do you mean by realism? See, can the requirements be implemented in a given available budget and technology? It means whether it is really possible to develop these kinds of requirements into a software with the given budget or with the given cost. Okay, verifiability. So verifiability, what is the difference between verifiability and validity? Validity means what? You are going to see whether the system satisfies the customer needs or not. Verifiability is that you have to check, okay, whatever requirements you have collected, whether those requirements are valid or not. Okay, that is called as verifiability. Okay, so requirement validation, I told you the definition. It is very important. You need to perform some checks. These are 4 to 5 checks which are needed to be performed. Okay. Now, the next is requirement validation techniques. In order to do that validation, you follow some techniques. So what are those? You do regular reviews. You can do prototyping for the requirement. You can do test case generation for that requirement. So requirement reviews are nothing but what? Reviewing. Okay, reviewing means what? Going through the requirements again and again. Different type of people can, you can create 5 to 6 copies of the same requirements and you can give to different kinds of people, and you may ask them to check. Okay, see, because what happens when you are seeing your own requirement, you may not observe a fault, but when you give that same set of requirements to other people, they may be success, they may get a success to find out so many errors in your statements or problem statement. That is the thing. Okay, so reviewing is done. So maximum reviewing is done for the collected requirements. Okay, so prototyping is also done. What is prototyping? You all know, guys. Okay, it is a small model of real system to check how your original system is going to work. So same way, sometimes prototyping must be done before finalizing the set of requirement, right? You may also go for test case generation. Okay, yeah, so developing tests for requirements to check testabilities. This is one part of testing where different test cases you can create and just put the requirements and check whether the requirements it provides a proper functionality or not. Okay, see, the detailed description is given here. So first is requirement reviews, as we have seen here. These are the validation techniques. Okay, and these are the how to check the requirements. When it is asked how to check the requirements, okay, you can go for these 5 to 6 features, right? And when it is asked for validation techniques, okay, when they ask you for validation technique, then you have to follow this approach, okay, which is about validation techniques. Okay, are you getting that? Yeah, all right. So here I was trying to explain you in more detail. Yes, so requirement reviews. So in requirement reviews, you can see that regular reviews should be held, okay, while requirement definition is being formulated. It means when you are defining the requirements at the time of making the proper set of requirement or finalizing the requirement, regular checks, you have to regularly review, okay, those requirements, right? So who can do that reviews? Both the clients and contractor staff. So client, you can also give that requirements to client if you feel that, okay, he can understand, and then some staff members, your team or the specific person can go through those reviews, okay? So reviews may be sometimes formal or sometimes informal, okay? So formally you may ask to review, or sometimes informally also you may ask to review any another related person to check whether the requirements are obtained correctly or not. All right. So good communication between developers, customers and users can resolve the problem at any early stage. They mean to tell us that reviews always help to sort out the different kinds of problem, right? Okay. Yeah. So that is all about reviews, right? So using review, you can do that. And see, verifiability, comprehensibility, traceability, adaptability. These are four main features, okay, which can be included here, right? So during reviewing, okay, that is during requirement checking, you can also do these activities, that is comprehensibility, traceability and adaptability, right? So comprehensibility is nothing but what? Is the requirement properly understood? Okay, you can just cross verify whether the requirements being provided by the customer and being noted down by the system analyst are properly executed or not. Traceability is the origin of requirement clearly stated. Adaptability, can the requirement be changed without a large impact on other requirements? All right. So please go through the second phase. Yeah, as I told you, that is all about requirement classification, right? So third is about your requirement validation, okay? And then we'll go to the next phase in the next video. So until then, take care.